Hi, everybody. I'm John Mulhall. I'm a Florida divorce lawyer, and I'm here with another installment of Divorce DL. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Kate Volman.
Hi.
You all have met Kate in past episodes. I think you actually helped me with the first two.
Yep.
And now that we've had a few episodes air with other Florida family law professionals, I thought I'd bring Kate back because I got a lot of good feedback on sort of the dynamic. And again, I really appreciate you sort of pushing me down this path.
Well, thank you for having me back. And you've had some awesome guests that have come on with some really great topics. And I enjoy coming back because that means that we get to talk about tips that you get to be sharing with the audience and with
It could be more about me.
It's about you. All about you. You are kind of like your guest on your own show.
There we go. Okay, we can do that. That works. That works.
But it was great because we always talk about different things, obviously, as someone is contemplating divorce or going through divorce, and you share some really great, this is what you do, obviously. So share, I know we were just talking about something when people are considering or contemplating or they've just decided or talked to their spouse about divorce, some things that you really need to consider to make sure that things go smoothly.
Sure. One of the things I was telling Kate is that among divorce lawyers, one of the first things that we want to tackle is sort of what is going to be the status quo in the household or in the two households as the parties are navigating through the divorce process. And it's a very important conversation. And people are always concerned about various things, whether it's their personal finances or their business or their children or the legal fees. Right. So people are always looking for some sort of guidance, once they've made that decision. What can I say to my spouse, or what should I be saying or doing until we can actually maybe get to the table and start talking about resolving issues?
Money has to be on the top of that list.
Everybody,
just wanting to how do you handle that? What do people do as far as, do you have to take money out of your account? You don't want somebody to freeze the account, or you just hear these horror stories about divorce and what people have to go through. So what does that look like?
Well, we all know that a very effective defense, typically when you're faced with any sort of challenge, is to hope for the best but prepare for the worst.
Right.
And in divorce, many times people forget the hope for the best part. The preparing for the worst is something that can be done, and it creates the impression or the illusion that your situation's secure. But what I typically find is that when you act on your worst fears, it tends to make the process that much more difficult, as opposed to reaching out to your spouse or your spouse's lawyer right at the outset and trying to establish a couple rules of the road, and particularly with finances. People are concerned about credit cards or joint bank accounts or investment accounts. Will people sweep them? Will they run up the credit cards, et cetera? And all that, from my perception, is born out of insecurity, lack of communication about sort of what are the rules of the road. So I think that if spouses are encouraged to have conversations about fears they both have, because each party has the concern or the fear, and recognizing the value and sort of, let's maintain the status quo. Let's not run up credit cards. Let's make sure the bills are paid. Let's make sure the school tuition's paid if the kids are in private school. Let's make sure that we're not doing things that are disruptive to a business. I think that helps to create a greater sense of calm and more trust in a situation where trust may be lacking.
Yeah. So what about kids when you're going through a divorce? What is that? Do you tell them? Do you not? When do you tell them? How do you tell them?
And again, I there's not a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
For every family is different, and the facts or circumstances of a particular family may govern the advice or the direction. If the divorce starts in violence or issues of addiction, those conversations or actions are going to be very different than if the couple has a decent relationship still. Perhaps they even slept together in the same bed the night before your client came to see you. That means that the trust isn't completely broken. You can have conversations about do we tell the children? Is there anything about their routine right now that should be interrupted, and trying to be on the same page. And it's particularly important, I think, if there are, new love interests or significant others who may be involved. There are some good rules of thumb, and certainly professionals can give advice on that. Nobody expects these couples to know this if it's their first divorce.
Right.
They need guidance. So.
Yeah. And every time we talk, I always just think about just open candid communication. I just feel like just being open with your spouse and open with the people, that's what people need to be more.
Probably if people were doing more of that, they would need guys like me to represent them. So communication is probably one of the challenges in the marriage. It is hard to sort of inject that, but I think that when people are looking for answers, to suggest something that may be so obvious, but that they've never felt comfortable doing in just between the two of them, if they realize that the professionals are saying this is the best way to handle it, then maybe it'll get better reception, certainly.
Yeah. And getting divorced is not inexpensive. I know that fees are a big deal.
I mean, it can get expensive if you're bringing in professionals, and professionals certainly, expect and deserve to be paid. So, again, I think one of the conversations at the beginning should really be an honest discussion about the family resources and the type of divorce that you want to have. And there's certainly ways to do it responsibly or peacefully, which I'm a huge advocate of. And most of my clients are looking for that. And I think most people are looking for that. And a way to handle it in a financially prudent manner. What are the sources that we're going to use? What are the sacrifices that we may make to make sure that the professionals aren't interrupted? Arguing over fees is probably one of the most expensive and wasteful ways for me to spend my time, or for the other lawyer to spend his or her time. So,
right.
So
well, John, thank you so much for sharing all these helpful tips. This is awesome. Thanks so much for having me back.
I'm so glad that you were here, and all is well with you.
Everything is great.
Thanks for watching. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Divorce VA.